Welcome to the Soar Above Success podcast, where you'll learn how to soar above your competition. And now, your host, Youre Vilk.
Hello and welcome to the Soar Above Success podcast. I'm your host, Youre Vilk, and I have Matt Holmes here today with us. Matt Handshaking Holmes has founded the Handshaking video series in December 2014. Matt has been a guest on several podcasts sharing strategies to get meetings with the 1% and how to turn world-class mentors from professional contacts to friends you're catching happy hour with. Matt, it's a pleasure to have you on Soar Above Success. Welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here.
Excellent. So, Matt, I understand that's a really big statement there. You're dealing with the 1%. These are the people that nobody can get in contact with. You don't have their information. It's not publicly available. I mean, it's like Richard Branson level. How did you start with this? This is mind-blowing and really, really exciting. And I can see that this is just the coolest thing that I've ever, how many people have met billionaires? Less than 1%, I'm sure, right?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But it's been fun. It's been fun just kind of starting from the bottom. Now we're here.
So how did you start with this? What was your inspiration? Why did you decide to start the Handshaking video series? And then we can like kind of go on and what is the Handshaking video series and just dive right into your business.
Yeah. So the Handshaking video series was launched, as you mentioned, late 2014, right after I was over my real estate company. With my first company, I knew I loved entrepreneurship. I understood how to buy low and sell high. And after buying single-family homes with out-of-state investors and growing the company to the point where I actually could pay myself and had a good net worth for my age, I realized I wasn't happy at all. I hated it. I was so sick of threatening to sue tenants, of flooded basements, of dogs taking craps on refrigerators, and everything that happens with residential real estate rentals. No matter how good the numbers are going. It doesn't matter if every single house we own appreciated 10 grand in just the last month. I wasn't happy. So I started interviewing people that I wanted to be more like. They weren't, some of them might be landlords, but most of them were tech startup founders, just creative online entrepreneurs. And after the first interview, I balanced an iPad on a chair. Bad video quality, awful audio quality. It was across the room. The room had awful acoustics, not like this one, hopefully. And just filmed an interview with a buddy's fiance. And that was the first interview, and then it just kind of went from there. I found a mentor from a startup accelerator, interviewed him, climbed my way up to a first venture capitalist, and then we had our first billionaire, got a member of Congress, and now we've had other billionaires on the video series too. And to kind of bring you guys up to speed on today, if I'm not rambling for too long, interviewed for about 12 months, and it was when I sat down with a billionaire founder of Priceline.com, Jeff Hoffman, and I asked him, Jeff, I sent you a cold message on LinkedIn. No one introduced us. Why are you sitting down with me? And he said, well, Matt, you have a strong personal brand. I could see who you are through your videos, and you're publishing blog posts on your LinkedIn that I'm interested in. Of course I'll sit down with you, buddy. And that's when it clicked for me that we need to help our clients. We need to, I've interviewed enough people, we're not making enough off sponsorships. I've met who I've wanted to meet, and now it's time to help others. So now we create content for personal brands with our service called Handbrander.
That's amazing. So you got the inspiration from a billionaire himself. You actually got from the CEO of Priceline.com. Now, is he currently still the owner of the company, or is he now just vacationing in the Cayman Islands?
I'm sure he has some of that's going on. No, they sold the company. He grew it from 0 to 170 so employees before they exited in 3 years instead of the 4 years that they were planning, and not a single employee quit. Can you believe that?
Wow. Now that's an HR story to talk about. I've never actually heard of a single, from all the way through the entire growth process, nobody quit.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
impressive.
Crazy.
So he sold the company, what was it, you said 3 years ago?
In
3 years?
It took them 3 years to sell it.
Got it. So that's amazing. You built a company from 0 to 170 in 3, and that's lightning fast. That's an impressive story. First of all, congratulate you on that, and that sort of change in your lifestyle and that change in your mindset to kind of, instead of being the person driven for content and sponsorships, you've decided to help other people. Now, what is it? Why do you have the passion in content? Why is it that you decided to help people in this way, as opposed to the other like thousands of ways we can help other people?
Well, like many other podcast hosts and video series hosts, it's hard to build an audience.
Yeah.
And even if you're trying to help people with your content, you need a lot. You need more experience under your belt. You oftentimes need more viewership. You need more funding. And I'm just not the patient type of guy. I'm very impatient. I must execute today.
Yeah.
Whatever ideas are being talked about that I talk with people after this interview, we're either gonna say no to them, or we're gonna get them done or started right now. And as soon as I figured that out after that conversation and interview with Jeff Hoffman, I instantly called up some friends and said, hey, we're launching this new service. I want to help with this type of stuff. Here's a highly discounted price. I just want you to cover costs because I need you to know it's valuable. You do have to pay because I am going to give you value, and kind of give me some feedback here while we start getting this service. So I'm really, I'm not the type of person to sit back and come up with a large strategic plan and figure out all the details. I'd much rather get some people involved, get some dollars moving around, and I think I'm just going to collect feedback faster that way anyway.
That's definitely an agile way of doing it, and it's a much more efficient way of building a business. I think gone are the days of planning and having these massive business plans and the 10-year, 5-year goal, whatever it is, just so that you can, have things on the paper to kind of figure it out. I mean, let's face it, the digital tech startup, you don't have the luxury of A, waiting that long, and B, you don't have the luxury of being that patient. It's a fast-paced environment, and it's way more fun to be in the midst of that fast-paced environment than just sitting back and waiting on executing on that corporate strategy and the corporate plan. Because nobody really wants to sit there and build the same corporations that were built, 50, 100 years ago that still survive today. Tech is completely different, and I've been kind of harping on my series here, the Tech 2.0 sort of movement. There's a whole movement, not only with startups, with HR, with the way we do business, with agile, with the way we're developing products, so that we can get that instant feedback and get that cash flowing fast. I love the way you did that. So what types of what kind of like tips or strategies can you advise us on how to get to these 1%ers? How did you tell us about that journey? How did you start finding these people? Why did you reach out to them, and how was that process like? What were the feelings you were going through?
Yeah, well, I think there's two really exciting ways we could kind of examine that. One would be kind of the more bigger picture, longer term strategy on how to blow up your personal network and credibility so that things like that come. The second way we could examine it is the exact tools that I use to find their emails and how I found out who could help get me a warm introduction. These are online tools that we could put in the show notes for anyone listening, because I know that we could go down either of those rabbit holes.
Yeah. So yeah, let's go down the first one, and then we can go down into the tools. So let's first dive into how do you get that warm introduction.
Yeah, so warm introductions tend to get a lot easier once you get plugged into a community. So if you're an aspiring entrepreneur out there, if you're a small business owner looking for higher net worth clients, the first thing that you're going to want to do is join an entrepreneurial community and another community that's in your industry or space. So once you're in that community, you're going to want to collect feedback from some of the leaders. Once you ask people for feedback on your idea, feedback for your business, that shows humility. And once they help you make a decision, they're going to feel a sense of ownership. Once you become a leader in that community by getting close with the organizers, or the mentors, the leaders in that community, then you have a little bit more credibility to reach out to really world-class mentors. At this point, we're talking people worth, more than $1 million, probably like 10, maybe flirting with 100. And once you get in front of those people, you're really going to start to see some of the benefits of networking helping you. So that's really the best way, because then once you have that credibility, things come a lot easier.
Yeah.
But before you have that credibility, and especially if you're not pushing content online, it's going to be a lot harder. So make sure you get started today. If there's one action item I could share with your listeners from that first rant, I'd say go on meetup.com, find some meetups that are relevant to your interests, and go attend them and make some contacts. Go for three contacts, and try to set up coffee with them. Don't try to talk to everyone. Don't hand out your business card. Meet 3 people. Try to help them. start a personal relationship with them.
Yeah, because if you're going around these networking organizations or you're going to these meetups and you're trying to talk to everybody and throwing up on them and showing, hey, this is my business, to buy my stuff, da-da-da-da-da, it's just going to blow up in your face and you're going to actually get nothing done. And then when you follow up with them and send them an email, and I've gone through this, if you send them an email, they're going to be like, who the hell were you again? I met like 100 people that night. Like, sorry, dude, I don't remember who you are. Now, Matt, speaking on kind of the same meetup, you had an exciting thing happen to you today, didn't you?
Yeah, I sure was. I was on live television.
All right. How was that for you?
It was good. So 9 News offered me a quick live segment this morning at 7:15 a.m., which meant I had to be downtown at 6:45 a.m., which meant I needed to wake up a little bit before 6 a.m., and I'm not a morning person at all. But, obviously that was a big opportunity. They were asking me about an event that we're hosting, or I guess by the time this airs, that we hosted in June 2016, called Battle of the Pitches. I organized a startup Denver meetup group. We have about 1,500 members, and every month we take applications from startups to pitch at our event. We select 4 of them each month, and each month there's one winner. And all the previous months this year are coming to pitch against each other here in June.
Whoops.
So we're really excited about it. This is the first time we've ever done a paid event, so we can really, get in some marketing, buy people some nicer drinks, have some swag, and it's going well.
That's amazing. So you're basically becoming tech stars.
I can't say that. I've talked to David Cohen on the video series. What they are doing is next level. They are helping the world on a completely different scale. But I admire those guys and would aspire to have but a small % of the amount of influence they've had.
But you're on your way. I mean, what you're doing and what you're doing for the community, and especially in the startup world, Matt, this is something that really needs to happen, especially in the Denver community. And I know there's a lot of these different facets of startup life here in Denver, but in general, these are the types of things that need to start happening more and more and more. People like you are really making the startup scene just immense and making it really exciting and a really cool journey to be a part of. I mean, who wouldn't want to be a part of a fast-paced growing business, and especially getting showcased on something like that. That's a really important thing, and publicity is very important for any startup. But this is just, it's the entrepreneur's dream to have that wave and finally start riding it. It's like going surfing for the first time and actually catching the right wave. And I don't surf, but I've heard of that experience to be, life-changing and really, really cool. So that's a really neat thing that you're doing, Matt. And then first of all, thank you so much for, putting yourself out there and doing these types of events. We need more and more of these community building events, because when you're doing this and you're behind a computer, it can get lonely and it can get very difficult, and you can get bogged down, especially if you're doing it all on your own and you don't have a mentor. And that brings me to a really good point: mentorship. Yeah. First off, have you had mentors? I'm sure you have.
Big time. I have lots of opinions on mentors and how entrepreneurs talk about them and try to get them.
And that's a really complex piece for a lot of people, and I know especially for myself, finding that right mentor, finding that person who actually gets it and is able to advise you in the right direction. What's your experience with mentors? How did you get them? What's a good strategy to get in front of somebody? I know you mentioned, starting to kind of crawl your way up, but especially how do you get these conversations from their business or your business and then into full-blown mentorship?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you define full-blown mentorship, but one thing I'd argue strongly, and I know many of my past guests would argue, is the best types of mentorships are informal over happy hour. The best types of mentorships are not someone who you have a contract or agreement with that you go and meet in their office, once a quarter. The best types of mentorships are people where you want to be either 1 year or 10 years from now. You want to have mentors that are both at both of those places. The younger person you look up to, or, that maybe even younger than you or a few years older, and then the one who's done it before, venture capitalist, someone who's sold a company for more than 50 or 100 million, not 10 million. That's the smaller numbers. You really want that mentor and maybe you start with a mentor that sold a company for 8 million. That's huge. I haven't done that. But, you want to keep it informal. Ask them for happy hour. Don't ask them for an office formal meeting. Get casual, get to know each other like you're each other's friends, and honestly, you should be friends with your mentors. It's good to have them want to commit to helping you long term, but don't try to hone them down or figure out a formal agreement. Keep it casual, and that's the fastest way to build trust with people that you normally wouldn't be able to get in front of.
Interesting. So you mean I shouldn't be paying somebody $10K a month to talk to me on the phone for an hour a month, and maybe send me 3 emails a month, and also have a contract with them. So that's the wrong approach.
Well, I don't know. A business coach is a different thing, and although my impulse for many years would have been, heck no, I'm going to get people to invest in me as a person and help me. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes you need help with accountability, and if you have mentors, and it's better to. So mentors that you aren't paying, or advisors that you aren't paying, you're going to want to develop a personal relationship with them. That oftentimes doesn't involve making sure that they hold you to what you say. When you want to hire an accountability type of coach, sometimes it's worth paying them. Because if they aren't forcing you to do what you say and focus on what you need to do, then if you're paying them, then you can fire them. And sometimes there's a need for coaches. You got to invest in yourself as an entrepreneur. I've hired a coach before for $500 a month. And what I think I need to find another one, and I'd be willing to pay even more if it was the right fit. But I think right now I need a slightly better fit. You got to find someone in your space that gets your vibe and communicates on the same platforms as you. If you like GChat more than Slack, that's something you should be asking a coach before you hire them. But I think we're talking about two different things. There's mentors that you're not paying. There's more advisors or coaches that you do pay. And I think there's a time and place for both.
And that is a really, really key piece there, Matt. And I really wish we talked about, not us, but I really wish the community would talk about this a little bit more. The difference between a coach and a mentor. In my mind, they're synonymous. And usually, that's when I speak with other entrepreneurs, a coach and a mentor is roughly the same thing. But you bring up a very good point in that a coach actually can hold you accountable, where a mentor is just somebody that you see yourself reflecting in a period of time. That's something that that both pieces are invaluable. But from a mentorship standpoint, to see somebody who's actually done it, it kind of creates a self accountability. You don't need somebody saying, "Hey, did you make sure you made that phone call and execute that contract last week?" In reality, it's like you're going to push yourself every single day because you see somebody who has done it. You see somebody who has sold a business for $100 million. That's an impressive number. We all know the money's in the exit with startups. That's something really, really difficult to see yourself if you've never experienced anybody. I mean, heck, how many people do we run into who have even $5 million net worth? The majority of people who we speak with barely make like $100K a year, let alone $1 million a year, let alone $10 million a year. Now I know I was actually reading. I think Bill Gates does $11 million daily. That's that would be an impressive number to share with people.
Yeah.
And when you have Bill Gates on your show, Matt, and I'm sure you will eventually, that'll be I'm sure that'll be a completely different experience.
Now, he hasn't tweeted me back yet, but maybe like 4 retweets next time. It'll be more likely.
Right on. So that's a really, really awesome thing. So your whole experience has been thus far, you've just been finding these really cool people, you've been networking the heck out of them, and now they're elevating you to bring you up to where you are in your business today. And that's what a better way to go about it. That's such an impressive story. Now, you mentioned earlier tools and how you're finding these people.
Oh, yeah.
Are you finding their email, you're emailing them, or are you picking up the phone and calling them? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all the next level stuff that you can do to be snaky and stalk and get in front of people the right way online.
Sure.
2016 and 2017. The 2 tools that I think I'll share with everyone listening right now is number 1, anemailfinder.com. And this is a tool where, it helped me find Mark Cuban's email address. Mark Cuban's a shark at Shark Tank, and he also owns the Dallas Mavericks.
Yep.
And because we know that he owns the Dallas Mavericks, we can find their website at dallasmavs.com. Now, once you put in Mark Cuban, his first and last name, and dallasmavs.com, they're going to go and search for what works and what doesn't work, and they're going to take their best guess and share an email address with you.
Wow.
That may not work. It works most of the time. It won't work all the time, especially on platforms like Facebook, where everyone has a Facebook email address, whether we use it or not. If you go and plug in Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook.com, guess what? That's probably not going to work. But for most people that you're trying to get in contact with, that's the best way. That's almost where I start. And then once you know you can contact them, or actually another tool that you can use, alongside anemailfinder.com, with or without it, is called Conspire with a C. And Conspire is a tool where I can plug in Mark Cuban, and what I'm going to see is myself and Mark Cuban and one person in between that we both email, if we both email the same person.
Wow.
But sometimes there's not a second degree connection. Sometimes it's a third degree. So then I would see that I email this person that emails, Mark Cuban's assistant.
Sure.
So and the more you build your network, the more effective that tool gets, because the closer you are to the people you're trying to reach.
Yep.
And not in terms of net worth, just any community, whether you're in a totally different community of tech startups or not. You just want to get narrow and niche in that community and become a leader in all the communities, and all the things in that space to really navigate and network more effectively. But Conspire.com, I highly recommend. It even shows something like a Wi-Fi signal that reflects how much you email each other. So when I plugged in Mark Cuban, I saw that Mark Cuban emails David Cohen, the co-founder of Techstars, quite a bit. They email a lot. It has a 4 out of 4 green Wi-Fi looking signal. And in between David and I, there's like a medium yellow one, because David and I don't email that much. But although he has been a guest on the video series, so of course I emailed him for that. And that's a pretty cool tool to really find out. So now if I'm, instead of using Anemail Finder to reach out cold to Mark Cuban, which yes, it's okay to reach out to people cold, but it's always better if you have a warm introduction. So now I know that David's the first person I should ask for a warm introduction to Mark. Where if I'm going the traditional route and looking at what second degree connections Mark Cuban and I have on LinkedIn, I'm going to see, hey, there's like 17 people here, and he probably doesn't know 16 of them.
Wow, that's a great strategy. Beats doing it manually. I've been doing it manually. It sucks. That's such a better strategy to go about finding these really high-level people and anyone in general on the web, because all the information is public, most of it really. But this is such a much faster way, more efficient way. If you don't have a connection in between, you're just shooting them an email and just kind of fearlessly asking them.
Yeah, and now there's you said the word email, so let's take a second to talk about that, right? Because it should be pretty short and concise. A lot of entrepreneurs that are starting out really honestly can't comprehend how much email these high caliber billionaires, business owners with lots of employees, you can't comprehend how much email they get. You also probably wouldn't even want to spend the amount that they spend on probably just one piece of software that helps them manage their email. And so be respectful and keep your emails very short. Make your ask. Make sure you have an ask. Don't just email them to shoot the
what's up?
Crap. But keep it. People say 2 to 3 sentences. I say 2 sentences, because one of those sentences should probably be in the subject line. It should probably also be short, and they need a reason why it's specific to them. They need a why you're trying to do it, and they need a what you need from them, and specific.
So these people are fast-paced. They don't have a lot of time, and you're basically asking them, give me some of your time pro bono. So in order for you to do that, it has to be about them, and make sure that I'm just going to repeat this back to you. Make sure that you're giving them something in the subject line that they can just quickly glance at it, read, and say, okay, I know what it is. If I'm interested, I'll open it up. And then when they open it up, there's an additional message, either asking with your ask and why it's important for them.
Absolutely.
Great, and that makes a lot of sense, because if you start, and that's kind of how you start building up. As you start moving through the whole series, as you start moving through finding more and more higher and higher net worth people, you're going to have more and more pull for why these people should talk to you. Because, hey, this guy talked to me, you should too. It makes sense that we should connect.
Absolutely. Yeah, pushing content, even if it's just a picture of you shaking hands with someone of a high caliber, that does raise your credibility and clout online, and it's smart to do that, even if it's just a picture.
And that's how we get to the stars, right? That's one of the fastest ways to align yourself with like-minded people with similar mindsets in order for you to kind of adopt that mindset and get into those shoes and get into that role. Because I'm sure these people who are dealing with these types of large accounts, they're no longer dealing with small technology pieces. They're more architects. They're just like, this is what needs to happen. Go do it. Here's the funds. Here's the budget. Make it happen. And we know we have a projected revenue stream from it that's going to make X amount greater than what we spend.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's something that's, most entrepreneurs are like, oh, I got to learn how to build websites. I need to learn how to do all this stuff. I would say learning how to build a website would be pretty important. It's a good starting point. But if you don't have the know-how and the skills, I don't think it's that essential based on what you're saying. Is that right?
I don't know. I think a personal website it conveys an amount of credibility that you're a little bit more serious than the average person that's on LinkedIn. Is it required? No. I mean, if I were to go look at your personal website, I'm not going to know who we know in common. But if I look on your LinkedIn and you know the people that I hold in the highest regard, that's going to work better than a personal website. Right. So never know how people are looking at you online, and you want to make sure you look good everywhere.
And there's plenty of tools out there. Obviously, WordPress is one of the biggest tools out there, which operates like almost a quarter of the web now. But there's also Wix, there's also Weebly, there's also Squarespace, and these are all website builder tools that you literally don't need any code knowledge whatsoever. You just put things together and it works. Hopefully, most of the time, especially with the third party, it works. And you can, if it doesn't work, you contact their support and they'll make sure it works. So that's there's really nowadays obviously I have multiple websites. It's essential for anybody really on the web to have a website and a personal brand, at least at the very minimum. Just have yourname.com. That's actually one of the articles that we wrote, why it's important to own your own domain name.
Oh, yeah.
That's your reputation. You let someone else buy that, you're putting your reputation in someone else's hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Matt, that you brought up some really good points with having your own personal web asset, finding these mentors. Now, my question for you is, how do we go about asking these people for a drink? How do we get them from that email and transition them? I understand you present the value statements, why they should be talking to you. How do we get them to go to the bar with you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, when you're proposing a meeting, why don't you give them both options? Hey, can we go out for a coffee or beer?
Aha.
And see how they respond. And sometimes you'll go and have coffee first. Maybe they want to get to know you a little bit better before they let their guard down. Because when you're having a beer with someone, it's just a little bit more casual. And there's lots of other ways to do that too, besides drinking a beer, by the way. Some of them just require more time or happen on the weekends. Like, obviously I'm sure here in Colorado, we love hiking. Hiking is a great way to build a personal relationship, and it actually burns calories instead of increases your caloric intake. Unfortunately, that's harder to do for most people on the weekdays, especially who are entrepreneurs and working 80 hours a week.
Yeah, and I've been finding it harder and harder to find time to go to the gym. So if I could get a hike and network at the same time, hey, it's a win-win for me, and it's a win-win for them too. And we can also see some cool spots, meditate, and get some of that nature absorption that needs to take place. Because obviously, why else would we be living near the mountains if we can't enjoy the mountains, right? That's why many people move here. What a different way to spin it. And that's one thing I think most entrepreneurs have, that fear of, ooh, I'm going to contact them and they might say no to me, or they might say, I don't want to go on a hike with you, or I don't want to have a cup of coffee with you. That's a fear piece that really just needs to get eviscerated and sort of eliminate that from your mental state, because it's really not helping you. And I imagine when you first started doing this, did you have that experience as well? Were you like, what are they going to say to me? What if they say no? What's going to happen? Were you going through those same emotions?
Yeah, big time. I mean, it's stage fright, right? There's been lots of times where I've drafted up an email to Elon Musk or venture capitalist Brad Feld, and I've just let it sit there in my draft for months. But that's part of it. Sometimes you just got to be able to ignore your fear. You're going to get a lot of no's as an entrepreneur. Everyone hears it. But come on, get out there and start hearing some no's. Start doing some things wrong. and that's only going to give you more confidence the next time you go around.
Yeah.
But I think the most important reason, again, especially since this is company I launched was on passion versus the first one was on numbers. With the first one, I got nervous a lot. There was things I didn't want to talk to my attendants about. There was, things I'd worry about conversations with investors. With this company, I took the time to find out what I care about, and I have nothing to hide. There's lots of things I need help with, and there's lots of things that I've learned, through trial and error that work great, and there's nothing to hide. And again, Jeff Hoffman, a quote from him, he said, the best thing you can do when you're an entrepreneur and you don't know what to do is to ask for help. It takes a little bit of humility, and people are going to look at you and they're going to be like, you're the boss, you're supposed to know what to do, and you have to look at them and be like, I have no idea what to do. The reason I'm talking to you is because I'm hoping you can help me.
Right.
Help, because if you can't, I need to move on to solve this problem, because I'm at a dark place right now. I need to fix this.
Yeah, and we've all been there. And Matt, that's such a huge piece. And we look at these really successful people. I just had this conversation where we think they've got it all figured out. They know all the answers. They have their lives that are perfect. They drive their Ferrari to work and everything's peachy and they don't have social and personal problems. Wrong. These people are just people. We all have problems. We have limitations. And if you've never run a business before and you don't know how to run a business, ask for help. It's okay. And I completely agree with you. That's such a different approach in most entrepreneurs. You cannot do everything on your own, and you will hit points where you're stuck. And I think that's such a great thing to do is reach out and ask for help and say, hey, I have never run a business before. What do I do with the incorporation piece? How do I pay my employees? How do I hire people? How do I find the right person to talk to? And this is like that. That's the difference between people who have operated a startup. They've gone through all these emotions. And that's why, bringing it back to mentorship, why it's so important. A mentor can look at your problem and be like, that's your problem? That's easy to fix. Do this. Just like you presented us, I can't find that person to contact. That's not a problem for you. You just find this website, find your relationships, reach out to them, and talk to them. What a great piece. Now, what was that experience like for the first time, Matt? What was that emotional state for you when you're reaching out to these, or when you're asking for help? What was that feeling like for you?
Oh gosh, I mean, sometimes it's kind of scary. Sometimes you worry that you're wasting their time with a dumb question. Sometimes you do respond. Sometimes you do ask a question that's too broad, and sometimes they're going to respond and say, ask something more specific. Oh. And that's good exercise. The more specific you can get, the better. The more clear you can get with everything, the better. Sometimes you're going to miss something obvious, but hey, if you ask for it, you're definitely going to find it right away, and that's usually the next step. So, it's not about you. It's not about your ego. It's honestly not even about if you succeed or fail. It's about if you can help other people and how fast you can do that in hopefully large, meaningful numbers.
Right.
So you gotta be able to ask questions, whether you think they're dumb, whether you think it's bad timing. Even if you think they're busy, let them tell you if they're too busy. You're out to go chase a goal. If you're waiting on everyone else, you're never going to get there. So, yeah, it's scary, but it's kind of like a muscle. The more you flex it, the more comfortable you get with it.
Yeah, I love how you put that. And you got to work at it. The first couple are going to suck, and you might fail, and you might screw up. I've had those emails that are like, I don't know what you're asking me. Please be more specific. And I'm like, ugh, I choked. I'm like, what do you mean? I thought I was so specific in my email. And they're like, apparently I wasn't, because they have no idea what I'm asking them. So you've got to clarify and sort of get better at asking better, more clarifying questions and get to the bottom of the issue. I agree with you 100%. That's so crazy to go through it the first time, but as you do it, I'm sure right now, like you mentioned, when you're in your passion-driven business, this is easy for you. This is just something that you do now. It's not even something that you even have to try. It just kind of comes naturally, right? Yeah. And you know what? Well, while we're on the note of passion, because I thought I was passionate about startups. I was doing my real estate company for 3 years, but I still ran off to work for the U.S. House of Representatives. I still tried to launch an online marketing firm. I still would ignore some of my real estate duties to go meet with other entrepreneurs that I wanted to, be more like. That it's like I was always doing the networking, but it wasn't easy to realize my passion. So one other piece of advice, again from billionaire Jeff Hoffman, is text 10 of your friends to tell you the one skill that you're good at. And
and ask, see what they find out. You might be a full-time accountant, and every single one of your friends thinks you're just a boss at solving conflict, right? Maybe you should go to law school. But that can usually give you some really powerful feedback. Ask your friends to describe you in one word. Ask 10 of them to do a good sample size, and see if that overlaps with your passion. It probably will, if it's not what you're already doing full-time.
That's a scary thing to do, to have that self-reflection. And I think that's like the next level that most entrepreneurs get to after they realize once they get out of their own heads and lose that ego and lose that mindset and finally get to a point where like, well, you know what, I don't have all the answers. Maybe somebody else does for me. And that's when you start instead of reaching internally for help, you start reaching out externally, reaching out to the existing network that you already have. And just there's nothing that could happen by asking a question. Nobody's going to throw a brick through your window if you ask a question especially about yourself. It's only going to give you more insight. But I think that's the piece that freaks people out, because when you're staring in the mirror, like I'm looking at myself in the camera right now, watching myself speak. And when I first started this, it was really weird. And then hearing my own voice, and then watching my own video, it was just a weird experience. At this point, it doesn't bother me at all. But that's like the reflection piece. Looking in the mirror is freaky. It's scary to see yourself for what you are and what you've become, because oftentimes we don't want to acknowledge that if we're not where we want to be today, why are we in that position, and how can we change that? A lot of people don't do that, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't do the self-reflection, and that's why meditation, I feel, is a really key piece. And it doesn't matter how, you don't have to sit down and I'm saying self-reflection, the meditation of, this is what I did today, how can I do it better tomorrow, how can I keep growing and keep going on that path. That's so many valuable insights, Matt. What a pleasure it's been having you on the show here. We're getting really close to time, and I know you're just chock full of information, and I can see it in your eyes that you got that burning passion to do this, and it's really, really cool to see that. You don't run into people like that every day. Matt, what's one takeaway? I know action is key to entrepreneurship. And what is that one takeaway that you can provide for everybody to sort of get started? Like, when you get locked up in that mode, it's really hard to get moving again and kind of get out of your routine. One key piece of information that you can provide us to unlock that, get out of our heads, and start moving.
Yeah, let's start with something simple. If you're just getting started, go on meetup.com and find a meetup group that's relevant to your interests. If you're into technology and startups, like Youre and I are, join one of our meetup groups. Startup Denver. We're in Boston, Atlanta, Phoenix, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. If you're in any of those cities, and tweet me. I'm just at Handshaking without the G. I'd love to hear from any of you guys who have networking questions, personal branding questions, and of course, if you join one of our meetups. And while I have your attention, everyone who's listening, thank you so much. I know there's a lot of content out there, so we really appreciate you tuning in and listening to us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt. And then where can we find more information about you? We'll post all the information and the links. It's going to be on WPSoar.com. You can find it there. It's going to be in the YouTube channel. You can find all the information there. Where can we find your information?
Yep, everything is Handshaking without the G. My website's handshaking.com, and my most active social networks are Snapchat and Twitter, where my username is also Handshaking.
Oh, very good. And it seems like you've cracked the Snapchat code if you got that as a primary social network as well. And we can have that as a discussion for a later topic, more in depth about social media, branding, and that stuff. Matt, one last thing. Why Handshaking without the G?
I just think it's a little bit more fun. Originally I bought that domain because Handshaking with the G was $18,000, which doesn't make sense to spend when you're starting out. But yeah. It's really come to fit our culture well. We're a team of young people that are networking and shaking hands with people in person. That's why handshaking is important. You got to meet these people in person to get them vested in your success. And it just fits in with our culture great.
So it's a little bit more informal, and it's a lot more fun. I like your personality. I like where you're going with that, Matt. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show, and hopefully we can catch you again next time.
Yeah, thanks, Youre.